Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ceci Truman Live. This show will be starting in just a few moments, so stay tuned. And if you're seeing this on social media, please like, share, and follow. For more information, go to trumanforcongress.com. This show is brought to you by Ceci Truman. Here's Ceci.
Welcome, everyone, to the Ceci Truman Live show. And today is February the 25th. Wow. Time is flying by. Elections, the primaries are just around the corner, March 5th, Super Tuesday. Make sure you all vote. You get out there, bring your neighbors, bring your family. Make sure that we are all voting for the primaries. Very important that we select the right people to go against the incumbents in November. This is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. I know that we've said that once before, but this truly is the most important election. And that is because so much is on the line. For example, our border crisis. And this is the main topic of what we are discussing here in the United States. We are being invaded. And for whatever the case, the powers that be, they have opened the borders. The Biden administration, Secretary Mayorkas, the vice president, has turned a blind eye to our borders. And so we're going to show a short clip of what is going on down there at the border here in California.
And so to see the change that's happening in Hikamba is probably not very surprising, unfortunately. And that's why, so many of us are saying, hey, we need to fix this problem. We are absolutely bearing the brunt on the local level here in San Diego County. And again, it's unprecedented. We've never seen numbers like this. Over 100,000 encounters in the last 4.5 months. That's why so many of us are demanding action. This is not a partisan issue, by the way. It's Democrats, Republicans, and independents. We're all seeing what's happening and saying, enough.
Illegal, and you come across that pass, you're entitled to a long list of state benefits from California and Sacramento.
Well, that's right, Bill, and it's complete incentive. I mean, not only the health care, but here locally.
Okay, we have two angel moms joining us, and that term angel mom was given by President Trump to these two wonderful ladies. The first gal is Angie Morphine Vargas. Her son was brutally executed. He was only 13 years old. This happened December 29, 1990, and he was featured on America's Most Wanted. And Angie will tell her story. Also joining us is Agnes Gibney. She was born in communist Hungary. Her family escaped when the former Soviet Union came and invaded her country. She came to the United States for freedom and opportunity, only to experience the death of her son, Ronald da Silva, 29 years old, was also murdered brutally by someone who was here illegally in the United States, had been previously deported. And so we are going to talk to these two wonderful moms. They are going to share their story. And Ronald da Silva, he passed away April 27, 2002. These are things that should not have happened. And as we are all mothers, our hearts are absolutely broken for you. Also joining us today is Shareleta Bassett, and she is a wife. She is a mother, a grandmother, a businesswoman, and best of all, she's running for California U.S. Senate against Adam Shifty Shift.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we would all love to see him go away.
Yes.
And so we will be talking towards the end with Shareleta, but she's joining us. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for being here. And we will start with Angie. Angie, can you please share with us what happened? I know you are very active advocating for sealing our borders. And I'm running for Congress. My district is a border district as well. My slogan for my campaign is secure the borders, save lives. And I've been saying this for 2 years, and I'm the only candidate that is very vocal down here in Southern California saying we have to secure the borders. So Angie, please share with us. You've been advocating for a little while now, since 1990, and share with us your journey.
Well, my journey's been hard, for one thing, because of the way I think and stand on what happened to my son. I get attacked a lot because they say that I'm a racist or I'm against my own people, and they always treat us really bad as, parents who've lost our kids to illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, as a Latina, they don't want me saying it out loud because then I'm against my raza. But, I was born here in the United States. I'm an American. And I wasn't born in Mexico. My husband was born in Mexico. And I know that we have two different cultures involved. Yes, we eat the same foods, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we were brought up totally different. And it's these radical Latinos that grew up in the 70s with the Chicano power and all that are taking over everything. And I think they've destroyed our children because all of a sudden we're not Chicanos anymore and we're not American, we're Mexican. And my dad used to tell me I was of Mexican descent.
Mm-hmm. Well, Angie, tell us. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Well, I wanted you to share with us what happened to Ruben, your son. Let's start with that.
My poor baby. He actually was going to a party. He had just turned 13, and he asked my mom if he can go to a party because I was at work, and my mom didn't want him to go, but he insisted because there was some girls that wanted to meet him, and he convinced my brother to drive him to the party. My brother didn't want to take him because in those days, you were barely hearing about drive-by shootings and gang violence. It was something that was very rare at the time. And my brother finally decided to take him, and he told my brother not to worry, that he would find a ride home. He didn't find a ride home. He ended up walking home with some friends that he grew up with in the neighborhood. 2 carloads of gang members drove up behind him and just jumped out of the cars and started beating up on him. They say Ruben ran, but when he saw that his best friend was getting beat up, he ran back to help him. Ezekiel Mariscal grabbed him by the shoulder and shot him in the back of the head, point blank. It was devastating for the family. We had never had a death in the family. Ruben I could say, was the first one in our family to actually die. And nobody could just imagine who it was. All of a sudden, it took almost a year before I even found out anything.
Wow.
I started hearing that the guy they called him Boxer, and that he wasn't even from Salinas. He was from LA. He was visiting families for the holidays when he decided to do it.
Northern California, right?
Huntington Park.
Oh, this happened in Southern California.
Well, he was from Huntington Park. He was from Huntington Park. He was here in Salinas visiting family for the holidays when they decided to do initiation, and my son was the target. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard because it took about a year before I even found out anything. And what I did find out afterwards is that he took off to Mexico. That as soon as he killed my son, he took off to Mexico, and that's when I started hearing that he was a Mexican national. They wouldn't say he was an illegal, but they started saying he was a Mexican national. And I didn't understand what that meant until my sister Lupe, who's very political, told me that it meant he was an illegal alien. And
so America's Most what was the program? It was America's Most Wanted. He was featured there.
Yes. There was a detective, the first detective or the police officer that got on the scene. He felt bad because he always remembered Ruben, how he was there, and he was just a little boy, and he decided to put in Ruben's story to see if they would do it, and everybody laughed at him. And they actually came out. They came out and did my son's story, and they aired it on February 5th, 1994.
Wow.
And Mariscal was apprehended in the state of Jalisco, Mexico, on July 9th. July 9th.
Okay, so your son's story was featured on America's Most Wanted, and they caught this illegal gang member a few months later. Then is what you're saying?
Yes, they caught him, and they wouldn't extradite him because he was from Mexico, and Mexico doesn't believe in the death penalty, so they wouldn't send him back. So all the detectives and the officers all told me that it was better that they just sentenced him in Mexico, which they did. He got 20 years in the Mexican state prison for my son's death.
Is he still there?
He got out in 2014, and with the help of President Trump's ICE, I was able to ask, if there was any movement on Mariscal since 2014, and they said that there was no signs of him ever being caught or in the country again. But that doesn't mean he's not here. That doesn't mean he's not here. Yeah.
Okay, so Agnes, please share with us what happened. Well, first, I would like for you to share your story briefly, how your family escaped communist Hungary. Well, the communist of the Soviet Union had taken over your nation by then. Tell us the story, how you escaped, and then share with us what happened to your son.
Sure. Thank you. First, thank you so much for having me on. I was born in Budapest, Hungary, and after the Soviet Union invaded our country, my parents tried to escape in December of 1956 and got caught because I woke up crying in the middle of nowhere, and they took everything away from them but did not arrest my parents. So in January of 57, they went for the border again, and this time was successful only because through a friend of my mother who worked at a pharmacy, they concocted a little sleeping juice for me so I could sleep through the journey, because they went to the last train station and walked the rest of the way. And we were able to cross onto the former Yugoslavia, which is where my father was born. And we were in a refugee camp for about 10 months. My little baby brother was born there and died there because they wouldn't let my mother seek medical care for him. And by the time they did, he died in her arms as they were admitting him. And they wanted us to stay. The government wanted us to stay in Yugoslavia. My mother said, no, we're going to America. So they wouldn't allow us to go to the American embassy. So they gave us a choice of South Africa. My mother said, forget that. Austria, which is right next door to Brazil, to Hungary, or my mother said, forget that, or Brazil. We ended up in Brazil, where we applied 3 times. The first 2 times the application lapsed. And on the 13th year, we were able to legally immigrate to the United States when I was 16.
Wow. And you did it the legal way.
Did the legal way. And the process is a lengthy one. Background investigation for the whole family, including me. I was 2 years old. What crime did I commit in Hungary? They had to do background investigation in Brazil to make sure I didn't commit, or my brother, my mother, or my father, any crimes. And when that was clear, we were directed to an American embassy appointed doctor, which was twice as much as any other doctor. for head to toe exam, blood work and everything to make sure you did not have any illness, cancer, or anything that would cost taxpayers money. And my father came with a job contract, and we had to sign. They had to sign a document stating they would not apply for any public assistance.
Wow, that's incredible. And yet now what we're witnessing is complete open borders. Even in the height of COVID, they were letting the people come in unvetted, not checked for COVID. They removed the DNA testing for children to match children with parents. Complete chaos, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's human misery at the border is what is happening, and the journey across. And so now your son, Ronald, what happened with him?
As I understood in the beginning, and this is the story I told for a very long time, until about almost 2 years ago, my son had gone over to his girlfriend's house to drop off some watermelon and some fruits for his boys. He wasn't together with his girlfriend. They were trying to reconciliate. Anyways, she wasn't home, and he was talking to his friend on the driveway when he noticed somebody coming behind him. And as I understood before, my son said, "Who is that coming?" And Robert turned around. And when he turned around, the gang fired the gun. Later, almost 3 years ago, Robert passed away. And at his memorial service, his mother told me that Ronnie, my son Ronald, gave her son Robert 20 years of life. And I looked at her puzzled, and I said, "What are you talking about, Maria?" And she said, "Didn't I tell you?" And I said, "Tell me what?" And she told me that Ronald saw the gang coming, pointing a gun, because he was facing the back of the driveway, and he pushed Robert out of the way, and he got the bullet. He got shot in the arm, and the bullet traveled across his chest, severing a main artery, and he died in surgery. He bled to death.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear both of your stories. And, time does not heal the pain. And I am so thankful to you both. And I know there's other angel moms out there doing the same thing. I'm talking to two of you, but
Ceci, if I can have a moment to share a couple of the other ones. My son, Ronald, and Ruben are not the only victims. Here's Ruben's picture, 13 years old, murdered. Here's Lacey Ferguson. She was 25 years old. She was murdered. Here is Javier Vega. He was a border patrol, was shot and killed at the border. Casey Joe, she was 25. She was murdered. Haley King, oh my gosh, her and the guy that she was on the scooter got rear-ended by an illegal alien on a pickup truck. She lost her life, and the young man lost both of his legs, and 2 years later, he died. Here's Rebecca Johnson, murdered in her own apartment on, I believe it was New Year's Eve. Josh Wilkerson, he was beaten to death. Here is my son, Ronald, who President Trump, by the way, always referred to him as Tom Selleck, but much better looking. And this is the end result. 6 feet of dirt and a coffin for most of us, for all of us. And unfortunately, our government is doing absolutely nothing to protect our borders. And as a legal immigrant, I am outraged. All we are is nothing but cash cows paying higher taxes to support the riffraff, the illegal aliens coming in this country illegally, disrespecting our country.
Right. Exactly. And, but I want to thank you both for advocating. You're turning your pain into action. You're spreading the word, and you're giving a message not only of warning, but Angie, you and I spoke of hope. And, the only thing that keeps us sane is the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what keeps our sanity, through all this. And we know that our hope is not here on this earth, but it's in heaven ultimately. And we are here to fight for what is righteous, for righteous laws and righteousness in the land, and to push back against this evil tide. And we know that, part of the Marxist playbook is, you open the borders. I mean, there's so much happening in America right now that is so concerning. And until, things, circumstances happen to people personally, then people start waking up. And that's, to me, a tragedy. But we need to keep being vocal about what is happening at the border. And I did show that video clip. Angie, tell us a little bit more about your son. What were his interests? What school did he go to?
To me, Ruben, all I could think of him as a little boy because he was my baby, and he just had a rough life. My husband was a stepfather, and my husband was very abusive. I told you my husband was from Mexico, so he had different ways of thinking things. He thought I was just bad, which I wasn't. But, he would scare Ruben, and Ruben always lived in fear of the domestic violence that was between me and my husband. And that's because, like I tell you, it was two different cultures. And he wanted to change me, and I wanted to change him. But he never changed, and I never changed, But I was with him for 44 years, and when he did actually die of COVID complications, it was hard. And it's still, I miss him. My kids say, "Are you going to get remarried?" No, I'll never remarry again.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your husband too. And then I know you and I spoke. You lost your brother also the same year. So you've really gone through a lot. And I know you're leaning on the Lord for your strength. You mentioned to me. And
yes, that's the only thing that's ever kept me going. I didn't turn to drugs, and I didn't turn to alcohol. I just turned to the Lord. I hate being a hypocrite, though. There's a lot of people out there but I try not to be. But I owe it to the Lord for making me.
Every day we wake up, we just turn our life to the Lord, and and it's a daily thing. It really is. Yeah. So Agnes, so what are you ladies doing now? I know that you met with President Trump. I know, Agnes, I see you at many, many events, and you're very active politically. That's how you and I met. Tell me what you're doing now to advocate.
Well, thank you for asking that. I ran for Congress in 2020, and I was honored to be the first angel mom to run and to be on the same ballot as my president, Donald J. Trump. I was an ex officio, an alternate, and now I'm running for San Bernardino's Central Committee because it is so unethical, corrupted. It is so bad, controlled by special interest groups. I had enough of that. And the disrespect and that goes on in there, it is absolutely over the top. I mean, to tell you, in December, my husband, who was an alternate, asked if everybody was in good standing. And I mentioned the secretary, Ben Lopez, who did not pay his dues. So he should not have been able to vote. But unfortunately, both of the Amanda Morales and Danielle Hawley, various closely associated with Phil Cawthon, did not pay their dues and were voting. So I mentioned Ben did not pay their dues. And so the treasurer looked around and says, "Yeah, everybody's good." So I yelled out his name again. And he gets on the mic and says, "Well, you don't know what it's like to have two $1 million lawsuits from woke people." Well, he's not being sued by woke people. That's another story. You can check into that. Something completely different and shocking. But I said that's irrelevant. So Phil Cawthon, the chair, comes around, looks at my husband, says, "Mark, control your wife." That is the kind of disrespect that happens in there. And just as of today, I spent most of the day posting stuff because I have been labeled left-wing threat. I am the most conservative, open, public, left-wing
threat. She's a left-wing threat. Yeah,
a left-wing threat, a Democrat left-wing threat.
Yeah.
And that couldn't have been farther from it. But again, special interest groups are running the show. And so we put a lot of posts out there. So I'm fighting this ugly swamp the San Bernardino Central Committee.
Well, and not only, we're experiencing that in the state of California, right, Shareleta?
Yes.
There's so many shenanigans going on with the California GOP. They want Republicans to be moderate Democrats. That's basically the bottom line of what is happening. And I say, you know what? If you're a conservative out there, do not be ashamed to be a conservative. No. We have 13.5 million churchgoers in California. 50% are registered to vote. 25% of them go and vote in the generals, and 10% vote in the primaries. The primaries are just as important, if not sometimes more important than the generals. And the church needs to get activated. We have to put feet to our faith and stop sitting on our hands because we're about to lose our country.
And Ceci, I'm sorry for interrupting. Another thing that I started is the Rancho Cucamonga Republican Assembly, CRA, California Republican Assembly. I figured we need to take control from the bottom up. Every city needs to have a CRA meeting to stop this. Angie and myself applied to be a delegate at the National RNC, National Convention in Milwaukee. Guess who did not get picked? Angie and I. Both of us were in the White House with President Trump, but the rhinos, Amanda, Danielle, Phil, both and his son Phil, they got picked. How corrupted? Where does that originate? Because two angel moms that fought for President Trump were not picked. How does that happen?
Agnes, explain what the CRA is, because most people don't know what that is in comparison to the GOP in California.
Well, the GOP, CRA is part of the GOP, but we are all conservatives. We have guidelines, we have rules, we have bylaws. It is not corrupted, and I hate to say this about the GOP. The GOP has been infiltrated by Democrats pretending to be, by progressive Democrats pretending to be Republicans, and they are not. Because when you start supporting a progressive candidate, you are no longer a Republican. That's as simple as that.
And we have to stop being so fearful of the establishment.
Speak up.
Establishment candidate, just like Shareleta is Shareleta. So again, she's a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and she's so beautiful. Can't believe she's a grandmother, a business owner, running for California U.S. Senate against Adam Schiff.
Yes.
Share with us about your run and your journey to decide to run for U.S. Senate.
So I have got tired of watching the lies, and as a Christian, you have discernment because you stay close to the Lord and you read your Bible. You know when people are lying, especially as mothers and raising children. You can always read between the lines of a kid telling a fib. It's the same thing with an adult. If they're saying something that does not ring true, you know there's something else to the story. And we have 8 kids between us, and I have 18 grandchildren. And my husband and I decided to invest in saving the United States and California in particular, because of the border and because of the children that have went missing. But General Flynn and Lara Logan and a few others were at the border just 2 days ago. And 11.1 million people have crossed that border illegally since Biden's been in office. And that is more people than have been born in the United States ever. Mm-hmm. That should tell you how disgusting and disgraceful this administration is, and how willing they are to turn against their oath of office because they want to break California. If they break us and bring us to our knees, they know that the rest of the nation will follow, because we have one of the largest food production in California and water. We have farmland all the way from Bakersfield to Redding, California. We're 700 miles long. Right. But the border in particular, my husband and I were actually trapped in Mexico. I love the Mexican people. And we were there vacationing, and we like to go to the less popular places because we love the locals. And we ended up testing positive for COVID, which we didn't have. It was their CRT tests that were over amplified. But we were stuck in a hotel room, locked in a hotel room for 21 days. And I emailed Hannity. I emailed everyone that I could possibly email. General Flynn and Lori were all trying to figure out how to get us to the embassy, but we were in Cancun. And here we are watching people cross the border during COVID. And we're thinking, we have to take a test. We can't leave this room. We're locked in. They brought us food and water. They were amazing. Don't get me wrong. But as an American citizen, we were trapped in another country, but they were allowing everyone to cross with their anchor baby and I consider it payment for an illegal immigrant to bring a child that is not even the same nationality to get across that border when you know good and well that they have no relation whatsoever. And the Biden administration, to me, are treasonous. They need to be tried for treason, and they need to be tried for murder. And so does everyone else that has helped perpetrate this crime on these beautiful mothers and their babies and all the other children that have been killed. And I'm in this fight because we need to save the children. That's the number one crime now in the United States. 500,000, that's 500,000 children have went missing since Biden's been in office. That's from across the border only. 400,000 go missing in the United States every year. And if we do not stand up as mothers with courage and faith in God, knowing that our God is the only one that can stop this madness, we are fighting against pure evil. And I stand on the word of God and I say the name Jesus often, because the people that are in the GOP, they have told me more than one time, do not say you're voting for President Trump or you will not win. And so the very first thing I do when I get up there is say I endorse President Trump before he could endorse me, because I don't take orders from a bunch of left-wing or right-wing people that have no interest in upholding their honor. And they took an oath, and they're not defending our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They're letting them in on purpose to cripple California and the United States.
Right. And that's why I say, we are being infiltrated by communism right now. And that is what Agnes escaped from. That's what many people have left their countries to come to America for freedom and opportunity. And we, America's a very unique country. And, we all swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution as it is written. And, our forefathers believed in a creator. And, the Constitution was next to scripture. I believe it was inspired by God. And,
the Ten Commandments.
Yes. Yeah. And,
it was inspired. It was actually written against the Ten Commandments. Yeah.
Right. And,
the part that's upsetting. Go ahead, Ceci. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. That's okay. We have a little.
I'm just so frustrated watching these candidates put this big article in the newspaper, all upset about the border when they're the ones that caused it. But they didn't say one thing at the debates that I'm not allowed to go to because my bank account's not high enough. While Gavin Newsom let 700,000 come into our state of California, giving them free medical. And they didn't say one thing about that on their debate. They're not for the border. They're saying what anybody wants them to hear, but they're not saying what's true. So they're saying, believe what I say, but not what you see. Watch their actions.
And so when we get into office, Lord willing, we are going to, day one, we are going to back President Trump. I believe he will be sitting in the Oval Office. And I, too, have endorsed him. Their campaign team has my endorsement letter. And he needs support. He needs candidates like us in the House to support bills and legislation, and that he will be approving and signing. And so he needs true patriots, true people who are truly Republican, and in our case, conservative. And that is because we hold to biblical values, and that is what founded our nation in the first place.
Yes.
So, yes.
I believe in the death penalty personally. To Angie and is it Agnes? I don't have my glasses on. I'm sorry. Yeah, we need to hold these people accountable in the most strict way. because I believe if they know that they will not be deported to their country so they can get back in again, and they're held accountable to the crimes of taking these mothers' children from them, then they will think twice before they cross the border. And as a U.S. Senator, we are able to redirect funds to the right organizations to reappropriate them, which would go to border. And I don't honestly believe that it should even be guarded by border control. I think it should be guarded by our vets. We have so many veterans and vets that could guard that border properly with the right training, get back on that front line, and then we would have ICE implemented again, and the police departments would have to notify them when they had a violent criminal that was an illegal or even just brought in on any charge. I don't care if it's a misdemeanor, and get them out of our country. But they need to know that there's going to be heavy consequences for crossing that border.
Absolutely. And, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, they're now being very proactive on securing the borders. And I know that, they've had it really bad there. And now, though, what's happening now is that those people who would have crossed through Texas is now being funneled to California. And California is a sanctuary state where they're giving all kinds of benefits, health benefits, you name it. And meanwhile, I was throwing a rally yesterday for my campaign and in my district. And there was a gentleman that was in a very rundown wheelchair, homeless guy. And he said, God keeps me and God protects me. But he was there for hours in the vicinity of where we were doing our rally. He had one leg that needed knee replacement. So he had to wheel himself backwards and drag his leg, and it was a very busy boulevard. And, and I just told him, I said, I'm fighting to secure borders because and he was not a drug user. He was just out on his luck and he just had no family. And this man was 77 years old and living on the streets. And, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And he said, I'm going to vote for you. He's a homeless guy telling me he's going to vote for me.
Yeah.
And, this should not be happening in America. We have to prioritize and take care of our own. And you know what? The even worse thing is by incentivizing this dangerous journey through Latin America to have children and, people in general, women traveling they're getting robbed, they're getting raped, and worse, kids are getting kidnapped and taken into the sex trafficking world. And 40% of the children, they go unaccounted for. They just disappear into the system.
Our church is really active in rescuing children. And to both of you angel moms, I wish I want to do more to help you, because this is one of the main reasons I'm running. I had a daycare for 19 years and I absolutely love children. They are God's gift to us, and they stole your gift. And my heart breaks for you, because we know as mothers that when we carry life beyond ourselves, there's nothing more precious than that miracle of life that we hold in our hands. And my heart breaks for both of you, because I know that you are truly angel moms, because you have angels in heaven. And I want you to know that I am fearless. I am not afraid of dying. I am not afraid of Adam Schiff. And I am ready to speak the truth to their face and stand up with President Trump's Agenda 47 and tell them on day one, I am going to help him implement that. And I know that Ceci is the same way. I started following her on Instagram because everything she said was the same way I felt. And as a mother, I'm older than Ceci. I'm a grandmother. I'm close to 60. And I am not afraid. They better not mess with me, because I am so sick and tired of the liars that are on both sides. And that why have they stood down? Why have we had to let it get to this point? And then we watch all the people using the money and calling for money in all of these other cities. And the money never gets to the people. It never solves the problem. I know that the tents cost $25,000 a piece, because all the different government agencies that have to set it up. But in the media is culpable too, for not allowing this truth to be known. And they need to be held accountable. And I say this because this summer, our church had a tip that there was a barge in the San Francisco Bay and that there were children that were being trafficked on that barge. And we reached out to some people that had some authority that could go out into international waters, is what they call it. So the regular police can't get there. They rescued 108 children. There were dead children on that boat too, but you heard nothing about it in the press. You heard nothing about it in the news. And each one of those babies had a Sharpie mark on them of what their designated need was. One would be used for sex, one would be for slave labor, and one would be for organs. And if you think these animals put these babies to sleep so they don't hurt when they take their heart out, you better think again. And I'm standing up because this is a blasphemy against God, and they deserve the death penalty, as well as these mothers, the ones that committed the crime against their children, and everyone else that's lost their baby because of an illegal cross the border. We have people that are waiting to become United States citizens that have just recently been told, after being on the list for 4 years, that they're at the bottom now because of the document overload. They don't say it's because of all the illegals. They're saying it's because there's a document overload. And we all know as women what that means. That means that they've put the real people to the bottom and they put the illegals to the top, because the Biden administration, that filthy, disgusting, it just makes me so upset. They have no respect for the American people. It should be America first, and our veterans and the homeless that they're medicating to die, the pharmaceutical companies need to be held liable to.
Right. Well, and that's another thing we haven't even mentioned was the fentanyl poisoning, but we will be discussing that in a separate show, because that's another major problem happening across our borders as well. So, we know that the cartels are benefiting, the gangs are benefiting, making billions of dollars per year. They are doing this with the help of China. Yeah. And they cannot, they cannot operate without the blessing of China. China is providing the fentanyl, and actually, I found out there are about 100 labs in Mexico where they are being sent portions of the ingredients to make this chemical, and that is killing Americans. So, Agnes, what was your experience? You both went to the White House when President Trump was president. Can you tell us about that experience?
It was very nice when President Trump found out that the Angel Moms were in DC. He immediately invited us to the White House, and there was a process. You got to fill out an application. They do a thorough background investigation very quickly to make sure you have no arrest orders or any criminal activity pending against you. And when Angie and I and 3 others went into the White House, President Trump received us with open arms. We took a picture, and he told us to look outside from the Oval Office into the Rose Garden. And he goes, look at all those vultures out there. Look at the vultures. There must have been about 200, right, Angie, maybe 250 reporters out there. Yeah. And President Trump sat down. It broke my heart. He sat down like this. He says, you have no idea how difficult things are in here for me. And my heart just sank for him. He was getting opposition every which way. But you know what? He was the only one that stood up for us, that gave us a voice, the Angel Moms, and treated our deceased loved ones with dignity and respect. Biden couldn't care less. And great man, absolutely great man. I cannot believe what they are doing against him. God bless him. I pray for him all the time, every day, for him and his family, because it's an injustice what they're doing to him. And Americans have better wake up, get their heads out of the sand, and start paying attention, because California as we speak, is being destroyed in a
Yes.
huge way.
Yes.
Everything in California, it's a sanctuary state, so we cater to illegal aliens. Now we allow kids from other people from other states to come here to have sex change operations on our tax dollars. Now we provide medical health care for illegal aliens when the taxpayer, have to pay for it. It's a disgrace. It is an absolute disgrace. And now the insurance crisis, trust me, do not let your homeowner's insurance lapse, because
No.
you're going to pay about 9 times more. We finally found one that's about 4.5 times more than we were paying before. Ricardo Lara is destroyed the insurance. He's an insurance commissioner. He completely destroyed everything. It's in everybody this year and next year. You watch how much your car insurance and homeowners insurance go up. It's like they want to run us out of the state. I just don't understand this. And at my age, I looked at my husband and I said, we're both going to be 70 this year. And I said, we're not in any condition to be unpacking my house and moving to another state because our government is inept. We need to fight. That's why I fight, not just for my dead son or for Angie's, but for everybody. So this won't happen to you.
Yes.
That's why they call Governor Newsom the U-Haul salesman of the year, because there's been a massive exodus out of California. Nobody's trying to bust into California to get in. I mean, I'm talking about American citizens, because it is not affordable here. They are trying to break us financially. It's my son purchased a home. He's 30, and he is paying up to $5,000 for his mortgage.
Oh my gosh!
And the rent for his apartment before that was $3,500.
Oh my gosh!
This is what the young people are facing right now. This is not attainable, and my heart, is hurting for the younger people.
Yes.
For young families, they're struggling.
American dream is being ripped away from you little by little. And that's what socialism is. And people need to understand that. They need to educate themselves, because I've been saying this, that we're dabbling in socialism since 2016 when I became an activist. I didn't even call myself an activist. I just spoke up. To me, I was just speaking up. But they say, no, you're an activist. Okay, so I am. Since 2016, I've been saying that. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, huh? No, we're okay. We're okay. Wait until you're no longer okay. When the government gives you a cell phone and young people say, oh, but the government will give us a cell phone. Yeah, and they will turn it off too.
Yeah.
Right. Breadcrumbs. It's like it's a form of manipulation. You offer the breadcrumbs. Just make sure you vote for the left side. And that's their game, how they want to stay in power. And, it is an exploitation of the American people, of our American tax dollars. And we're on a fast pace for our dollar to be destroyed, our economy to be destroyed, our security to be destroyed. And therefore, we will not have a nation. We will not be a sovereign nation any longer.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? They take everything away from you, make it so hard, and then they'll give you a little piece of bread, and then you say, oh, thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. No, look at what you have now. There is nothing more priceless than your freedom.
Yes. They're trying to do their 15-minute cities, and they've been experimenting on us all through the COVID. And we need to get rid of the World Economic Forum. They should not even be allowed to say anything in our country. They don't care about us. Bill Gates, the CC Communist Party, and Mayorkas needs to be tried for treason too, because he went to the San Vicente, and they're building they've almost finished the Darien Gap Bridge, where they can bring Chinese communist equipment across up through Mexico into the state of California. And we have got to be loud, and we've got to be resilient, and we have got to pray. And pray like we've never prayed before, because we have the authority as Christians, as God's children, to stand on the blood that Jesus shed for us when he died on that cross. And I stand on it, and I say that we have the authority to cast down this evil, and we will not let it take over, because California will not fall. We are going to save California, and by doing so, we are going to help turn the nation, because our state is the largest state in the nation and many other economies in the world. But together, just us four, if we agree to pray together and stand on the word of God, we have the authority in us to cast down these demonic people. And that's exactly what they are. They have these rape trees, and they have all of these panties and all of these things in these trees that are sickening. People need to start seeing those on the news. And that's why I think the media needs to be held accountable. It's enough. If people started seeing the real facts, they would start taking a second look about turning that screen on. And they say that they'll get all of these free things. It's just a ploy to brainwash you into be more needy, so that you have no other place to turn to except the government. We need to get rid of big government and get American citizens like us four back into the seats that belong to the American people. And I have noticed at all of these campaigns, Ceci, that when we get up there, they're all about the Republicans winning or the Democrats. Nobody ever talks about the American people. I talk about the American people. I'm standing up as an equal person to them, as a servant. I was at this one, I'll quit talking after this, but it just was so profound. I can't get it out of my head. We were at an Asian dinner, and there were other candidates at my table, and a woman couldn't put her shoes on beside me. And I had a long red dress on. I didn't care. And I knew she couldn't get her shoes on without help. So I dropped to the floor and put her feet in my lap. And they were swollen. She has kidney problems, and she couldn't get her shoes on. 3 different tables said, get off the floor, you're running for U.S. Senate. And I said, I could care less about that seat or the title. When we can't have a humanity with each other and love each other, that means nothing. That's why I'm running for U.S. Senate.
That's a problem with government, that these people, these officials that are in office, they think that the Americans are to serve them. And it's the other way around.
Absolutely.
They should be serving we, the people. And that's how our country has been designed. And that is the blueprint. And you know, in scripture, it says the greatest of all is the servant of all. And Christ was the example of the servant of all. And we are to mimic his heart, his service to people. And you know, it's reminding me of last night. You know, it was probably 10 at night when you know, my husband was helping me with take down signs for a rally that we did. And this man, again, he asked me by, his name was Dan, he was a homeless gentleman. And I thought maybe he had somewhere to go earlier in the day when we had seen him. And he said, you know, and I stopped him. I said, Dan, I said, where do you live? He goes, oh, I sleep in front of Home Depot. And I wish I could have done more for him. He goes, and I get up at 6 a.m. and I eat breakfast at Carl's Jr. across the street. And it's a big boulevard, and he has to drag himself backwards. His right leg is just dragging on the pavement because he can't move it. And he goes very slow. It was very frightening to see him trying to cross the street. And so I just sat down on the curb with him. And, you know, it's pretty dark out there, and it's not the safest neighborhood, but, you know, I just knew that the Lord was watching over. Amen. And he needed the encouragement. And if anything, he was trying to encourage me, which just, it seemed right. Yeah. But we bought him dinner, and I wanted to do more for him. And I asked him, you know, it's been cold here. It's been raining. And I know that California houses 50% of the homeless population in the whole country. And I just asked him, I'm like, you know, how do you do this when it's raining and it's been so ice cold at night? He goes, oh, I just, you know, he showed me where he sleeps right there on the bus bench. He goes, that's where I sleep. And I just throw 2 blankets over me. He goes, I had a really good blanket, but it got taken away in the, you know, it rained really hard. So it formed a little puddle or big puddle. Anyway, his blanket washed away. And anyway, it was just heartbreaking. The story was heartbreaking, but this is the reality of what our homeless population, and not all of them, again, they're not all on drugs. A lot of them are just can't afford to give up. They just give up. And this should not be happening.
How can we help you, Angel Moms?
Angie?
I would say just keeping our children alive helps me. You know, being able to talk about him, being able to say what happened to him, that keeps him alive and it keeps me going. I don't want nobody to ever forget why he died.
They should never forget.
My son will
Our
never die
world,
again.
yeah, our world has been very different since our sons were killed. For me, just giving the opportunity to talk about it, bring awareness, educate people, so somebody else will not go through the same life sentence that we, Angie and I, and many in hundreds, thousands of other angel moms live with. The fact is, it's a breakdown in the system.
Yes.
Judicial system is the one that pled with my killer to take a plea bargain from first degree to voluntary manslaughter. He is out. He was also released in 2019 in November. He might be back in the United States, but just give us an opportunity to speak about it, to bring awareness, to educate people, and most of all, remember our children. Don't ever let them forget, because someday we're not going to be here. Please, always. My biggest fear is that, like I said, I'm going to be 70, that I'm going to die, and nobody's going to remember my son.
Well, we will keep Ronald and Ruben. We're going to keep them on the forefront, and we are not going to forget them. They are not forgotten by God.
No.
Going to be forgotten by us, and
No.
we continue this fight. This is why we are running for office. And Shareleta and I are vocal. We're not ashamed to be, to fight the good fight, and being truthful about our agenda. And we are hated for it in some cases, but we are loved for it in even more cases, right, Shareleta?
Yes.
We have the support of the American people.
When Ceci and I win, I make an agreement with her right now that we will plan something. We will work something out to make sure that there's some kind of memorial to the children and the babies that have been lost because of people coming in and murdering them. And you have my word on that. And I'm not trying to get votes. I'm talking to you as a mom and a grandma. Our babies should be remembered, and they're trying to take away the right of our children to have life beyond themselves because they do not want us here. And we will work together, Ceci and I both, and we will make sure that your boys are remembered and that the other children are too. And we will work with President Trump to figure that out. And that's how confident I am in God. They don't want me running because I say the name of Jesus. They don't want Ceci running because she says the same thing. They don't want a powerful woman in there that knows the authority that she has as a Christian and as a mother. We have strength that so many men don't have because of that life that we've carried in our womb. And I stand on that strength just as you have, and you still carry that in your heart for your boys. But I give you my word, when we both get in our seats and we take that oath, which I've taken an oath before, I never let it go. Her and I will work to make sure there's something that your boys are remembered forever.
Well, ladies, I just want to thank you all for joining us. Our hour is up, and I feel sad to let you go, but we will be in contact. We will. I see Agnes a lot. I look forward to meeting you, Angie, in person. And I love you both. I love you, Shareleta. Thank you for fighting the good fight, ladies. God bless you all.
Sending you love. Bye. It's nice meeting you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you for joining our show today, everyone. God bless you. And let's remember 2 Chronicles 7:14 that says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, will seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then God promises to hear from heaven, to answer our prayers and heal our land. Thank you all. And God save America.
And God bless the United States of America.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
This show was brought to you by Ceci Truman.